So this is the picture that I'm working from. This, as well as this, which is a bit of a close-up of the left-hand side with La Salute. This is it's a gorgeous dome on the left-hand side. This is the Grand Canal in the back. And on the right-hand side, we have the Doge's Palace with the Campanile, the bell tower of San Marco behind it. Okay, so because this is my main reference image, I'm going to zoom in and just notice a few things. The various boats, the colors, the main things, the main patterns and colors that I'm going to capture in my painting. So just look close in, look at what you are seeing. Next thing is to actually do a bit of editing. Now, when you edit, you want to really tease out the colors. And the main way to do that is by clicking on the saturation, and increasing or decreasing the saturation will result in a very different. So if you decrease the saturation, you actually see the light and dark patterns, the black and white, which is the very first, the type of contrasts that you see there. Whereas if you increase the saturation, you begin to see things, see colors that were not as prominent before. So I like to set it to somewhere between 50 and 75, not to exaggerate too much. I'm going to zoom in and see what I can see now. What is it that I haven't seen before? So the Doge's Palace, the front, the face, the facade, towards the Grand Canal, lit by the sun, is a buttery color now, which is a very gentle, light, peachy color. Then as I go back, I begin to see all these terracotta roofs in the back, as well as some of the La Salute and the Punta dello Dogana's white walls in the shadow, as if they were a light grayish purple or blue. So I'm going to take a good note of these, as well as I see that there are reds on the boats, and there is turquoise and blue, as well as green, and maybe even some yellow in the water in front of it. Now also, if you zoom out, you begin to see that there is a bit of a, compared to this building, there is a tiny bit of a reflection of that building in the canal underneath. So I'm going to paint that as well. Now going back to the colors, one thing is, because this is a summer picture, this was taken in, I think it was August, I'm going to see what it looks like if I play around with the temperature. So if you add more of the yellows, you begin to see the canal turning very green. Now this destroys some of your reds, of course, and some of the cooler colors, the purples, begin to disappear. But you are not using just one version of a photo. When you are playing around with photos like this, you are actually looking at the warm version. You see that the white building there has a bit of a yellowy hue to the sunlit side. And if you play around and turn it towards the cooler colors, some of those purples and blues come out to help you see that anything that's in the shadow will have that color. Okay, so you use both versions, warm for the sunlit side and the cool for the shadowy side. I'm going to set it to sunny slightly. And by the way, do look at, the various ways. I love this. Look at the purple in the sky. I love that. But I'm going to set it to slightly warmer. And also when it comes to tint, you should have some sort of a way to tinker around with the actual colors. What your camera does, what your phone, if you took the picture with the phone, but even a proper grown-up camera does, is because they call them smart cameras, the camera will think it's very smart. So if it's a landscape, then it will overdo the greens If it's a cityscape, it will grade out slightly. If it's a seascape, it will turn everything blue. Now you want to prevent that because that's the last thing on earth. I mean, it's the small, teeny tiny bits of color that you want to notice. So if you play around with the tint, look at what happens here. I'm actually seeing a lot more of the sky reflected in the water now. And if I turn it the other way around, it disappears. So whatever color you need, and I much prefer having a bit of red in there, which should help. It will also turn some of my purples and blues stronger and bolder, but this should help, especially with some of those rooftops in the back. So you see what happens, all of a sudden there are blues, there are purples, violets, and the reds are a lot stronger. So you can play around with this as well. You can, sometimes you use this feature just to circumvent or dial back the greens in a landscape, but this is pretty much how you can play around with it. Now, as for contrast, the most contrasting area of your painting is where people will focus, and that's true for any artwork, photograph, graphics, whatever. So this is probably the biggest challenge, is not to end up with a high contrast, everything very stark, very light, very dark type of artwork, because this is like a very old-fashioned just a postcard type. I don't like it, and it actually, you're losing the colors in the details in some of the darker areas. But if you dial the contrast down, what happens is that some of the details in the shadows are visible. They become visible. It's not as stunning in itself as a photo. Of course, the lighter colors become gray, but also the darker areas where you couldn't see any of the details underneath there, you see those, the colonnade. If you are dialing it up, it disappears, the details disappear. If you are dialing down the contrast, you begin to see some details that are in the dark, in the shadow. What your camera does, it tries to balance out all the lights against all the darks, so it's a nicely balanced light and dark, so that it's a well-balanced photo. But that means that you are losing the details, you are losing what goes on in a very highly lit, well-lit area, as well as some of the dark areas. So if you want to see the details, you can play with the contrast. And exposure, again, play around with it. You see that you are beginning to lose details in the sky, lose details in all the lighter areas, but also you remain, some of the main features remain. If you are doing the other way around with low exposure, then you begin to have, again, more contrast, and it's a different scene. So it's to be played around with, okay? You need not just one version of this, but a few more. And brightness, again, you can play around with it. If you dial it down like this, you end up with a different type of contrast. If you dial it up, then it looks like there's more sunshine in there. So I'm just going to save this, and please have fun with all the photos that you are working from. If you must work from photos, then just please play with these and make sure that it is the full spectrum of colors. You understand what colors are there, what are the possibilities, the cool and the warm especially. Okay, that's it. See you guys next week.